she knew that I was a stand-up comic before most of you were born, back when comedy was funny.
Yeah!
I got into comedy because everybody was going to laugh at me anyway. I thought I'd get paid for it. But I got out of joke telling because no one took me seriously. So right now I'm writing books, and I'm promoting this one by telling these stories. I'm not a cowpoke, but I take popular urban legends, tell them cowboy poet style. So listen up. First one, Death by Dung. Friedrich Riesfeld was a keeper at the Paderborn, Germany Zoo. Friedrich ended up much deeper than you ever want to be in poo. His elephant, named Stefan, normally shat with regulation, but his bowels was out of step and he was fit with constipation. He'd been cared for like a pet. What was this all about? 20 tons of food he ate. For days, nothing came out. He'd been exercised around his pen and fed a healthy diet. Were there anything to ease his pain, you know Friedrich would try it. His animals were his concern. He'd stay all night and sit with a sickly-looking pachyderm who couldn't give a shit. What an awesome task it was, uncork a beast that big. First try, a bushel basket full of berries, prunes, and figs. Some laxative will do you good. You like it now, big fella. Anyone in Germany would. It tastes just like Nutella. Steph studied it like elephants do. They sniff with their long noses. Took quite a while before he was through. He had 22 doses. The final touch, an enema fed made with olive oil. An extra virgin formula to make the bowels boil. As Fred got close and aimed his spray into the mammal's rear, he didn't know that, in a way, both their ends were near. Now, Stefan, stop your grumbling. I'm your biggest fan. Steph's ears started rumbling. Then the shit hit the man. Fred dropped. Toward just a boo-boo, the fall plumb knocked him out. An amazing amount of doo-doo then proceeded to pour out. Toward no animal nor human round when Fred fell in that trap. No hound came to rescue him in that there avalanche of crap. He wished he'd been curating for some much smaller species. He would be suffocating in the waterfall of feces. Friedrich man's one last breath, his final respiration. Zoo vets diagnosed his death. The cause was defecation. One way or another, it became a worldwide scoop. German keeper smothered by 200 pounds of poop. Now, zoos are full of dirty jobs that someone's got to do. You're thinking that this story's odd, too crappy to be true. Well, you won't find a truer fact than that almanac on your shelf. A friend of my cousin Jack overheard it his own self. So there. For some reason, I thought this audience would like the poop poem. Another one. When you fly to New York, an awesome skyline you'll be greeting. On the surface, take a taxi to that most important meeting. Below ground, go by subway to the restaurant or theater. But don't go any lower. In the sewer, there'll be gators. Now, how did alligators with their big old snappy mouth come to live below Manhattan when you know they grow down south? Did some genius say while noshing on his bagel and his locks? What this city really needs is alligators or crocs. They were brought back by New Yorkers wintering in the Florida sun who thought a dangerous animal might bring some family fun. They needed gifts for grandkids who might feel really hurt if Grand went to Miami and all they got was a t-shirt. Each grandpa had the same idea. I know what to get. I'll buy little Joe a baby gator for a pet. Joe will be the envy of every kid at school. He could use the family bathtub as the gator swimming pool. At first, the little beasts were welcome in the family nest. Then they started biting and becoming a real pest. New York moms appreciated feeling clean and showered. They couldn't enjoy their bath time with a chance they'd be devoured. All around Manhattan, they cried, "This just can't go on." And all the families flushed their alligators down the John. These reptiles congregated in the sewers of New York. Then they started breeding, where it's stinky, damp, and dark. This started in the 30s, flushing baby crocodilians. Some were boys, some were girls. By now, there could be millions. There ain't no light way down below, and if you believe the winos, they've grown into a colony of giant flying albinos. Criminals who hide below and see those big jaws snap will learn they're not the baddest bangers and that they're big apples. They'll find out soon enough that their zip guns and switchblades just ain't a match for a man-eater from the Everglades. If you slip through and greet the beast at New York's lowest level, you might think you fell to hell and met up with the devil. But will they come up and terrorize? I don't think they would. They leave the upper city to the pushers, pimps, and hoods. They ain't gonna swarm the streets if manholes ain't kept shut, or swim up through a public john and bite you on the butt. No need to hide up in the sky in a high-rise elevator. Just be careful not to go too low. In the sewer, there'll be gators. He bought a box of rare cigars, the finest smokes on earth. Then took out fire insurance, $15,000 worth. The insurance company wrote it up because that is what they do. They cover loss of property, but they hadn't thought this through. He filed a claim for damages that seemed to them bizarre. In a series of small fires, he had lost every cigar. They never seen a claim like this in thousands of case files. They learned the hard way not to underestimate his wiles. They refused to pay. He's a con man, was the company's retort. The smoker stood his ground and took the insurer to court. The man stood up before the judge and explained his situation. During the fires, Your Honor, I suffered smoke inhalation. The judge, he didn't like this man. This case stuck in his craw. But he was bound by precedent. He must follow the law. I must rule on how your policy reads, not what you say it meant, the judge said. He had a fire loss. You must pay him every cent. I wish that I could rule for you, but I got no legal ground. Go back to work and find a way to turn this case around. The lawyers had a conference. The man's victory was cut short. The company filed charges and he landed back in court. He faced the same judge. Young man, you have made my court a mockery. I find you guilty of arson for torching your own property. You must be punished so that you won't pull this prank no more. A series of small sentences. 1 year times 24. I did listen to what you said. Your health is not a joke. I'll make sure the prison guards are told you're not allowed to smoke. I hope you learned your lesson because you got me really pissed. 24 years will set you straight. This court is now dismissed. Thank you.
Drew, we got to do it again with the camera.
All right.